The galaxy had grown used to fear. For centuries, the alien empire known as the Zarin Dominion had crushed every rival that rose against it. Their fleets moved like storms across the stars. Planets that resisted them were reduced to ash. Entire civilizations surrendered without firing a single shot, because resistance always ended in silence. The Dominion had written the rules of war, and no one dared to challenge them. They spoke with arrogance, with voices carried across every corner of known space. They declared that war belonged to them and to them alone. They said no fleet could ever stand against their power. They said no species had weapons strong enough, no courage deep enough, no ships advanced enough to defy them. For generations, their claim stood unbroken. In distant star systems, the sight of a Dominion battle group meant only one thing: defeat. The war drums of the galaxy beat to their rhythm. It was not a question of who would win, but of how long the losing side would last before being erased. But history, as it often does, was about to change in the quiet of a single moment. The Dominion fleet gathered near the blue world of Arcanus, where another rebellion had tried to rise. Their warships filled the sky. Vast dreadnoughts with spines like blades, cruisers armed with plasma cannons that glowed red in the dark. Thousands of ships stood in formation, a wall of firepower meant to crush hope before it could breathe. Their commanders waited, confident. Reports had come of a human warship traveling toward the battlefield. The Dominion officers laughed at the idea. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, a young species still learning to walk among the stars. To send one warship against the Dominion was madness. In the command chamber of the Dominion flagship, the overseer leaned forward in his throne of steel and light. His voice was cold as he ordered the fleet to prepare. Let them come. Let this human ship see what becomes of those who stand against us. War is ours, and ours alone. His words echoed like a ritual, the same words every Dominion fleet carried into battle. And then, it appeared. From the edge of the system, the human ship broke into real space. At first it looked small compared to the endless armada before it. A single vessel, black as the void, its hull gleaming faintly under the starlight. Its lines were strange, sharper than most ships, with a design the Dominion did not recognize. No banners flew from it, no escort ships accompanied it. Alone it advanced into the darkness, steady and unafraid. The alien crews leaned forward in their stations. Their scanners ran across the strange vessel, and the results caused confusion. The power readings were wrong, far beyond what a single warship should carry. The weapon systems were unfamiliar, built from technology the Dominion could not classify. Silence filled the channels as technicians whispered among themselves. Still, the overseer of the Dominion did not waver. He rose from his throne, his claws gripping the air. "It is one ship," he said. "One ship cannot stand against thousands. One ship cannot break the Dominion." But the younger officers, the ones who had fought in a dozen wars, felt something different. They had seen many enemies fall, but never had they seen one ship fly with such calm into certain death. They watched as the human warship drew closer, its engines burning like a blue heart against the endless black. The Dominion fleet shifted, surrounding it on all sides. Weapons lit up across the armada, painting the void in crimson light. The overseer gave the order to fire at will. Thousands of cannons readied to strike, confident that in one volley the human vessel would be reduced to wreckage drifting in space. And yet, in that moment before the storm, something unsettled them. The human ship did not turn, did not flee, did not even slow. It cut through the darkness with the silence of a predator. Its presence alone carried weight, as if it knew something the Dominion did not. The first Dominion officer spoke what many were thinking but dared not say. What if this ship is not like the others? His words fell heavy in the chamber, unanswered. The countdown began. Weapons charged, plasma cores whined with power. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. One human ship surrounded by thousands, standing against the empire that claimed no fleet could ever be defied. It was in that silence, just before the void erupted into fire, that the truth began to unfold. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion's certainty wavered, and for the first time in history, humanity's shadow fell across the battlefield. Humanity's arrival. The Dominion fleet stretched across the void like a wall of iron. Thousands of ships held position, their weapons glowing with red light. They had destroyed so many challengers before, and now they prepared to erase one more. To them, the arrival of a human vessel was nothing but a mistake. Yet as the strange ship advanced, the silence inside Dominion command chambers grew heavier. The vessel did not broadcast fear. It did not plead for peace. It came alone, and it came without hesitation. The human warship cut through the darkness with lines sharp and clean. Its hull shone like obsidian, broken only by glowing veins of blue that pulsed with quiet power. The Dominion scanners swept across its surface, but nothing matched their records. It was as if the ship had come from another age, built with knowledge they did not possess. Technicians reported impossible results. The energy output was higher than anything they had measured before. The shields carried strange signatures, patterns they could not break down. The weapons were hidden, their nature unreadable. Even the ship's size was strange, larger than a destroyer, smaller than a dreadnought. Yet it radiated the presence of something far greater. On the bridge of the Dominion flagship, young officers whispered among themselves, "What kind of vessel is this? Why does it not turn away?" The overseer silenced them with a glare, his voice steady. "Do not be deceived. It is one ship. One ship cannot stand against us." But his words did not erase the unease. The human vessel slowed as it entered the battlefield. Its engines glowed like a living flame, pushing back the dark around it. The Dominion fleet adjusted their formation, surrounding it from every angle. They believed they were caging a beast, but the beast did not thrash. The beast did not roar. It only watched. Inside their ships, alien crews shifted nervously. They expected fear. They expected frantic maneuvers, desperate signals, a last plea for survival. But the human vessel gave them nothing. Its silence was louder than war drums. At that moment, the Dominion commanders realized something they had never faced before: uncertainty. Reports spread quickly through the fleet. Some officers called it a bluff, a ship sent to distract them while others prepared elsewhere. Others whispered darker thoughts, that this was not a warship at all but a weapon, one built for a single purpose they could not yet see. The more they looked, the less they understood. The human ship drifted closer to the center of the Dominion armada. Its hull reflected the glow of thousands of enemy cannons, yet no blast touched it. It moved like a shadow sliding between flames. Every second it remained intact. The pride of the Dominion cracked a little more. The overseer slammed a claw against his throne. "Enough waiting. Show them the power of the Dominion." At his order, fleets readied their guns. Dreadnoughts aligned their massive plasma cannons. Cruisers locked targeting systems. Fighters swarmed into formation like insects preparing to sting. Yet the human ship did not move. Its engines pulsed softly, steady as a heartbeat. Then something strange happened. A voice, not sound but a transmission. It spread through Dominion channels, clear and unshaken. A human voice, steady and calm. "This system is under the protection of humanity. Leave now or you will not leave at all." The words fell across the fleet like ice. Never before had an enemy spoken so boldly, so directly while surrounded. The overseer bared his fangs and laughed. One ship threatens thousands. End this arrogance. Weapons charged their glow, building like a rising storm. But still the human ship did not fire. Still it did not retreat. It floated, waiting, as if confident that the first strike would decide everything. Some Dominion officers felt something they could not name. Their instincts, sharpened by countless wars, whispered to them, "Do not underestimate this enemy." But pride blinded the overseer. His claws cut the air again, his voice sharp. "Destroy them." The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The Dominion fleet unleashed its storm. Plasma and light streaked through the void. Beams from dreadnought cannons burned like suns. The space between stars became fire. The human vessel vanished inside the flood of destruction. For a breathless moment, the overseer leaned back in triumph. The younger officers exhaled. The storm had consumed the intruder, as it always did, but when the light cleared, silence fell once more. The human warship still floated there. Its shields glowed faintly, rippling like water disturbed by pebbles. Not a single shot had broken through. Not a single mark scarred its surface. On Dominion bridges, mouths fell open. Technicians froze at their stations. Generals who had never known fear felt their hearts sink. And in the command chamber of the overseer, claws loosened from the throne. His eyes narrowed, his laughter gone. The human ship's engines flared, brighter than before. It was no longer waiting. It was preparing. The first strike had belonged to the Dominion. But the next strike would belong to humanity. The first strike, the silence that followed, was worse than the storm itself. The Dominion fleet had unleashed the power of thousands, yet the human warship stood untouched. Its black hull gleamed beneath the fading glow of plasma fire, its shield still pulsing like calm waves against a shore. Alien officers across the fleet struggled to understand. Their weapons had never failed. Their dreadnought cannons had crushed cities, moons, even orbital fortresses. Now they had met a target that did not break. For the first time in memory, the Dominion faced something that did not yield to fire. On the flagship's command deck, the Overseer's claws tapped against his throne. His eyes narrowed, rage building where certainty once lived. "Charge again," he commanded. "Do not stop until nothing remains." His voice carried through every ship, harsh and sharp, but doubt had already taken root. Technicians whispered to each other, voices trembling. "It should not be possible," one muttered. "Our readings say their shields bend the very energy itself." Another shook his head. "No shield can do that. No species has this technology." Still, the order was law. Cannons charged once more. Fighters looped in tighter circles. Cruisers narrowed their lines of fire. The Dominion prepared to drown the human ship again. But this time the human ship moved. Engines roared with a new intensity, blue flames bright against the dark. The vessel cut forward with speed no one expected, shifting across the battlefield like a predator through a school of prey. Its silence broke with a single surge of power. Panels along its hull opened, revealing weapons the Dominion could not name. The first shot came without warning. A beam of light burst forth, sharper and brighter than any plasma stream the galaxy had seen. It tore through the void, striking a Dominion dreadnought square across its center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the great warship split apart as though sliced by an invisible blade. Fire poured from its broken spine, fragments scattering into the abyss. The dreadnought, proud jewel of the Dominion fleet, was gone in a single breath. Gasps filled Dominion bridges. Generals shouted, officers froze. Never had one of their strongest ships fallen so fast. The Overseer's claws dug into his throne, his voice shaking with fury. "Focus fire! Bring it down!" But panic spread faster than orders. As the Dominion tried to regroup, the human ship struck again. Another beam erupted and a cruiser vanished in an instant. A third shot cut through a cluster of fighters, turning them into sparks against the night. Every strike was clean, precise, unrelenting. The Dominion's wall of iron broke piece by piece. Alien captains cried out across comms, demanding explanations. How can one ship do this? What weapon is this? No one had answers. Each volley was a revelation, and each revelation was death. Meanwhile, the human warship did not rush. It moved with patience, gliding through enemy lines as though every move had been planned years before. Its strikes were measured as if it chose its targets not to win quickly but to break the enemy's spirit. And it was working. For the first time, Dominion crews felt fear rise in their chests. The Overseer shouted to steady them, his voice echoing across channels, but it no longer carried the same weight. The image of a dreadnought splitting apart in silence haunted them. Another volley came. Another ship was erased. Flames burned across the void, turning the battlefield into a graveyard of Dominion metal. The alien empire, which had always spoken with certainty, now struggled to breathe. On smaller ships, officers began asking questions their leaders refused to answer. If one ship can do this, what if humanity has more? The thought spread like fire. Fear turned to dread. Dread turned to collapse. The Overseer roared, his voice breaking through panic. "It is only one ship! Crush them before the others learn of this." He gave no space for weakness. To admit fear was to admit the Dominion was not eternal, but deep inside even he felt the truth gnawing. The human vessel was not ordinary. It was something else, something designed for moments like this. The battle raged on. The Dominion poured more fire, their fleets burning brighter than ever before. Yet every blast faded against the human shield. Every attempt failed to slow its advance. The human warship answered with calm, with silence, with one strike after another. It was not just fighting, it was teaching. Each shot carried a message. The age of Dominion was ending. And then, as the debris of another fallen cruiser drifted past, the Overseer finally felt it. The weight of history pressing down. The empire that claimed no fleet could be defied had just witnessed the impossible. For centuries, the Dominion had written the rules of war. But in that moment, with one human warship standing against thousands, those rules began to break. The overseer's voice lowered, no longer filled with certainty. "What are they?" he whispered. No one had the answer, but the battlefield was already showing it. Humanity was no longer just another species in the galaxy. Humanity had become the storm. The warship unleashed. The battlefield was no longer the Dominion stage. For centuries they had written every war like a script. Fleets entered, fleets burned, fleets surrendered. But now the script was torn apart, and the human warship was holding the pen. Fragments of Dominion vessels drifted like dying stars across the void. Once mighty dreadnoughts, proud symbols of endless conquest, now floated as wreckage. Cruisers that had terrorized planets crumbled into silence. The battlefield, once filled with order, had become chaos. The human ship advanced through it all with calm precision. Its engines flared softly, like a heart beating steady against fear. Each movement was deliberate, a predator circling prey. Alien crews felt it. They were not fighting against blind luck. They were facing intent. On the bridge of the Dominion flagship, the overseer barked orders, his voice cutting through the panic. "Form the second wall. Block its path. Surround it again!" Ships scrambled to obey. Fighters swarmed like insects, filling the dark with streaks of red light. Battle cruisers shifted into lines, their cannons burning bright. The Dominion still believed numbers could crush the intruder, but the human vessel slipped between them as if numbers meant nothing. Its weapons lit the void in bursts of blinding energy. A beam carved through a cruiser's shields like paper. Another shot pierced two destroyers at once, splitting them into fire. Torpedoes burst from hidden bays, streaking with trails of blue, each one finding its mark. Every strike was not just destruction. It was demonstration. It showed the galaxy a truth the Dominion had hidden for centuries, that even giants could bleed. On smaller Dominion ships, crews screamed across open channels. "We cannot stop it. We cannot even touch it." The fear that had started as whispers now spread as a wave. Captains who once spoke with iron voices now gave orders in panic. The human warship's shields flared as enemy fire struck again and again, but each blast faded into nothing. It was not invulnerable, but it was untouchable. Its defenses bent energy, twisted it, turned it back into the void, and the offense. It was more than power. It was artistry. Alien strategists watching from afar saw something they could not accept. The human vessel was not just firing at random, it was dismantling the Dominion fleet with precision. It targeted command ships first, silencing leaders. It crippled carriers, leaving fighters blind. It tore through heavy dreadnoughts, breaking the backbone of the armada. Every shot carried thought. Every strike carried intention. The overseer slammed his claws against his throne, the metal groaning under the force. His voice was raw with fury. "You will not retreat. You will not fear. You are the Dominion." But even as he roared, he could see the truth in their eyes. The fear was no longer possible to command. Another dreadnought fell. Another cruiser burned. The battlefield shifted again, and now the Dominion no longer felt like the hunters. They were the hunted. The human vessel drove deeper into the armada, its weapons unleashing storms of light. Entire formations broke apart. Fleets that once stood like walls now shattered like glass. Aliens who had grown up believing the Dominion was eternal now saw it crumble in a single battle. In the distance, the planet Arcanus watched the sky burn. Civilians who had hidden in fear now peered upward through cracked shelters and shattered domes. They saw not just the fall of their oppressors, but the rise of something new. They saw a single ship fighting not only for itself, but for all who had lived under the shadow of the Dominion. Back in the fleet, commanders tried desperate measures. Waves of fighters hurled themselves against the human warship, only to be swept aside by its defenses. Heavy cannons fired until their cores overheated, yet the shields held. One alien captain rammed his destroyer forward, hoping to strike by sacrifice, but before contact came, the ship was torn in two by a single beam. Nothing worked. Nothing touched it. The human ship pressed on, relentless. It did not speak again. Its silence was the sharpest message of all, that it needed no words, only proof. The overseer, his voice breaking, gave the command that none had heard from Dominion lips in centuries. "Fall back. Fall back to regroup." His claws trembled as he spoke it. The words tasted like poison, but they were the only ones left. The Dominion began to retreat. Fleets scattered, breaking formation, running toward the far edge of the system. It was not strategy. It was survival. Yet the human vessel did not chase recklessly. It did not rush into traps or stretch itself thin. It moved with calm, with patience, choosing its strikes carefully. A retreating cruiser exploded. A fleeing carrier burst into flame. It punished the Dominion as they ran, but it never lost its steady rhythm. Alien eyes across the galaxy watched through intercepted transmissions. They saw the pride of the Dominion broken. They saw an empire that claimed no fleet could be defied now retreating from one ship, and they began to whisper of humanity. The warship floated among the wreckage, its engines glowing like a torch in the dark. Around it drifted the shattered remains of what had once been an unstoppable force. The silence of space was broken only by the crackle of burning metal. For the first time in living memory, the Dominion had been humbled, and the galaxy had seen it. The overseer slumped in his throne, rage and disbelief tearing at him. His empire had been shaken not by a fleet, not by a coalition, but by one ship carrying one flag. He whispered into the silence, "If this is one, how many more are there?" No one answered him, but every captain, every soldier, every citizen across the galaxy was asking the same question, and in the heart of the void, the human warship waited, silent and steady, as if it already knew the answer. The battlefield had fallen into silence. Where once the Dominion filled the stars with order and fire, now only debris remained. Wreckage drifted across the void, glowing faintly as flames flickered in the darkness. Entire dreadnoughts had been reduced to twisted shadows. Cruisers spun without power, their hulls torn apart. The galaxy's most feared fleet had become a graveyard, and at the center of it all, the human warship stood unbroken. Its black hull glowed faintly against the starlight, shields still humming with calm energy. Its engines pulsed slow and steady, like the heartbeat of something alive. It had come alone against thousands, and it remained. Around it, Dominion ships fled into the far reaches of space, their formations shattered, their certainty destroyed. The overseer on the flagship slumped in his throne of steel. His claws shook against the armrests, his eyes fixed on the screen where the human vessel still burned with silent defiance. For centuries he had spoken the same words as his fathers before him. No fleet could be defied, no enemy could stand, no war could be lost. But now those words lay broken. His empire had been humiliated not by a coalition of rivals, but by one ship, one species. His voice cracked as he muttered into the silence. "What are they?" No one around him could answer. Officers lowered their eyes, too afraid to speak. For the first time, the overseer felt something that had never touched his throne: fear. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. Transmission beams carried shaky recordings of the fight, fragments of desperate calls, images of dreadnoughts being torn apart in a single shot. Civilizations that had bent under the Dominion's power now saw proof that the Empire was not eternal. Hope, long buried, began to stir again. On Arcanus, where the people had prepared to kneel once more to their conquerors, survivors looked to the sky with disbelief. Through smoke and broken walls they saw the impossible, Dominion ships retreating, burning, fleeing. And above it all, a lone warship standing like a guardian. For generations they had known only fear, but now for the first time they whispered a new word: humanity. The human vessel did not chase the fleeing fleets. It did not broadcast victory speeches or demands. It floated in silence as if its presence alone was enough. It had come not for pride, not for conquest, but for proof, and that proof had been delivered. On Dominion worlds far from the battlefield, panic spread in quiet corners. Families who had once spoken of their empire with pride now spoke in hushed voices of what they had seen. If one ship could humble the Dominion, what could a fleet do? If this was humanity's first strike, what would come next? The overseer sat alone long after his officers left, the weight of defeat pressing down on him. He had believed the Dominion's rule would never break, that their arrogance was justified by history. But arrogance had been their blindfold, and humanity had torn it away with a single battle. He could not understand how a young species, barely known among the stars, had built such a vessel. And he feared he would never know. The human ship remained at the center of the wreckage, silent as a shadow. It was not a conqueror gathering spoils. It was a messenger. Its very existence was a warning. The galaxy's balance of power had changed, and the Dominion's age of arrogance was ending. As the last Dominion signals faded into the distance, the human vessel powered its engines once more. Slowly it turned away from the battlefield. The wreckage of thousands of enemy ships floated in its wake, a monument to a new truth. With a final burst of light, it slipped back into the void, vanishing into the darkness between stars. And in its silence, it left behind a question that would haunt the galaxy. If one ship could do this, how many more waited in the dark? Civilizations across the stars would not sleep easily again. Every empire, every fleet, every world wondered the same thing. For centuries, they had feared the Dominion. But now their eyes shifted toward Earth, toward humanity, toward the species that had walked into the jaws of power and shattered its teeth. The overseer stared into the black screen of his failing command display, the echo of his empire's fall ringing in his ears. He whispered once more, but this time not in pride, not in certainty, but in despair. They said no fleet could be defied, but they were wrong. His words, meant for himself, would soon belong to history. For the galaxy had seen what arrogance could not imagine, and it had seen humanity unleashed.